We had 4 firefighters die on a fire in the rural stretch on the Utah and Colorado border. We also had 2 firefighters, 2 helicopter pilots die battling the Wide Muff 2 fire here in Utah.
Reporters and editors from the Salt Lake Tribune, Wildfire, Cal Matters, the Colorado Sun, Montana Free Press, the Mountain Journal, and the Nevada Independent teamed up to examine the worst wildfire season in years.
Officials still don't know exactly what led to those deaths. They're still investigating. Some have raised concerns about some of the policy changes made by the Trump administration between the full suppression and the reorganization, and whether those played a role in those deaths. Trump administration have pushed back, saying that the reorganization and the policies have not played any role at this point. That it's too early to say anything.
Colton Lockhead is an editor at the Salt Lake Tribune. He oversees environmental coverage at the paper.
The story is really about how the Trump administration made sweeping changes to the U.S.'s firefighting forces, consolidating Department of Interior firefighting forces into a single agency, and especially pursuing a full suppression strategy in which they are trying to, rather than letting some fires burn in more rural areas, they are telling firefighters to put out every single fire as fast as possible. Some are concerned about that being a return to a discredited so-called 10 a.m. rule that dates back to the 1930s, and in the pursuit of putting out every fire as fast as possible. Concern there is that there's not enough firefighters to be able to put out every blaze, especially in a hotter, drier West that's burning faster than we've ever seen.
Amy Alonso is an environment and energy reporter at the Nevada Independent.
Roughly 100 years ago, there was a really destructive fire in Montana, Idaho, several states up there. And after that, the Forest Service implemented a policy that became known as the 10 a.m. rule. And it was basically that if there's a fire, they want, to the greatest extent possible, for it to be suppressed by the following morning at 10 a.m. Obviously, that is not feasible in a lot of instances, but it was kind of a target towards how for a target goal for a lot of forest management practices. And so what we shifted from was kind of having a healthy relationship with fire, having fire on the landscape, to just full suppression. And that led to just this really giant buildup of really dense underbrush in certain areas. When we had this 10 a.m. rule, when we had suppression, it led to a buildup of brush. It led to these really dense forests. And that's what you're seeing, in part, being one of the drivers behind these mega fires that we're having. There's obviously other factors like a warming climate and more and more human recreation in forested areas. There's a lot of other issues, but just having this dense undergrowth, having these really dense forests is part of it.
Brooke Larson is the Salt Lake Tribune Southern Utah reporter. She spoke to U.S. Forest Service Chief Tom Schultz as federal officials toured the state.
I asked Tom Schultz about the federal government's full suppression policy it's taking this year. He said that was necessary because this year is so hot and dry. Fires have the risk of getting really out of control and difficult to contain. He also said that they are taking direct and indirect approaches, and more indirect approaches can be used for firefighter safety. Tom Schultz emphasized that the Forest Service is not returning to the 10 a.m. policy with this full suppression focus, but it is a concern for some that it may echo aspects of that 10 a.m. policy.
Olivia Prenzel at the Colorado Sun has noticed a shift in sourcing on stories like this one.
I've covered wildfires for many years, and there's often this willingness from these experts to share how their experiences, strategies to reporters. This felt like there was a shift in how willing sources were in giving some information about these changes. It's just something I noticed as I tried to reach out to many resources and many sources for this reporting project, and either didn't receive a response or sensed some hesitation.
To combat the problem of sources who might not be willing to be totally candid, Wildfile's Mike Koshmerl sought out people who were no longer employed.
So for a more unfiltered critique of this transition, I turned to a federal government retiree. And so I interviewed a fella named Andy Norman. He worked on wildfire issues for 37 years for the Bridger Teton National Forest. And Andy shared some concern that, as firefighting resources are pieced off of the Forest Service and kind of yoked with the federal government wide wildland fire service, that it could kind of change on the local level how fires are handled on national forests, and that they could kind of like get away from forest plans and kind of move into a world where everything just gets extinguished immediately, even if it's in like a wilderness area or somewhere where there's a little bit more tolerance for wildfire burning today.
I really looked for examples of lawmakers going on the record. For example, one senator from Colorado, he said that he was very concerned about the deaths in Colorado and Utah of these firefighters, and said that he was committed to asking for a swift and thorough investigation. So it was a different way of getting a better understanding how people were concerned about what was happening during Colorado's fire season these past couple of months.
But having a group of peers who understood the same topics, where you could just mention something like suppression and wooey and insert other wonky word, and people knew what you were talking about, and then like we're able to reciprocate in the conversation and just kind of have that dialogue. That for me was a really neat experience, like feeling like I had a group of peers who really understood the topic that we were talking about.
Rachel Becker reports for Cal Matters.
I think that, the process of kind of starting broad and all of us trying to kind of narrow into a story has really opened my eyes to the complexities of land management and firefighting in the West. And really gave us an opportunity to dig deep on from the basics to more complex questions. And that's definitely been an interesting, an eye-opening learning experience.
It's setting up to be the most destructive fire season we've seen in at least a decade in terms of like acres burned in the West. And so what we've been able to do is have reporters in each state and in these 6 states be able to talk to various different people that, that we in Utah may not be able to reach on a normal, for a normal type story. This really allowed us to kind of like branch out, find sources that we wouldn't normally be talking to, and tell a story as full as possible.
I feel like our reporting almost feels like a launch pad for what's to come. This was answering the first set of questions that I think a lot of people are asking, and we are going to continue to learn more about these federal changes. And I don't think it's anything that any of us are going to stop reporting on, and this was just a great start.